Ever since the new Mustangs were released in Starstable Online, players have gone absolutely wild, making Spirit remakes, Mustang edits, Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron shorts, and basically anything revolving around Spirit. And I am no exception. Listen, I've been planning on making a Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron remake since well before SSO even announced they were working on giving the Mustangs a makeover. So, to be fair, I jumped on this train well before the overwhelming amount of Spirit content. Now, with that being said, I'm a huge Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron fan. I think I can speak for most people when I say we grew up knowing Spirit. Spirit was the start of my love for horses and filmmaking in general. There's a lot I want to cover in this review, so grab a snack, sit back, and let's chat. Ew, that was cringy. The storyline. I've seen this movie at least 100 times, but if for some reason you haven't seen this blessing that is Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron, here's a basic rundown of what happens in this film. This movie is a Dreamworks classic that's been around for 19 years. Directed by Kelly Asbury, it was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. It was released back in 2002, however the film itself takes place in the 19th century in the American Wild West. We're immediately introduced to the land, which is very clearly untouched by humans, and the backgrounds and animation style is something I only dream of accomplishing. Seriously, props to the animation and design team. Most movies will quote-unquote humanize animals in order to make them more relatable, especially in children's films. However, since the horses don't speak, it was imperative that the artist made the horses realistic. Dreamworks cared so strongly about making this film as realistic as possible that the company actually went out and bought a Kiger Mustang stallion named Donner. I was pretty shocked to find this out because I feel some equestrian movies very clearly have little to no knowledge about horses and how they actually move and behave. However, the team wanted a good grasp on how horses actually act, and that is how Spirit's character came to be. Unlike Spirit, who was born wild, Donner was actually born on a ranch and, fun fact, is still alive at the age of 26. I think. Some sources say he was 26, others say he was 28, so I don't know. And living at Return to Freedom Horse Reserve in central coastal California. Spirit grows up to be a stallion and takes over as leader of the herd, where we are shown that he really does have responsibilities. Similar to horse herds in real life, the main role of the stallion in a herd is to protect his mares and offspring. In my opinion, this is an unnoticed detail, however, it appears in the film over and over. We see that Spirit takes his job very seriously, and the undying need to protect the ones he loves, especially his mother, is not a joke to him. Not even 12 minutes into the film, Spirit's curiosity causes him to stumble upon a human camp. And so, the conflict begins. The chase scenes in this movie are probably some of the best I've ever seen, and still to this day I am in awe at the angles, the ideas, and the music. Don't even get me started on the music, we'll get that later. Obviously, if Spirit escaped the cowboys, we wouldn't have a story, and the movie wouldn't be a movie, would it? So, of course, Spirit is captured and taken back to the US Cavalry Post. This film is meant to take place during the Native American Wars, however, I'm definitely not an expert, I'm just going off what directors said in interviews. Here we are introduced to various characters including the blacksmith, some of the soldiers, and of course, the colonel. It doesn't take long for the other soldiers to realize that Spirit is not an easy task and breaking him is next to impossible. However, the colonel has this brilliant idea to tie him to a post with no food or water for 3 days. I'm pretty sure this is considered animal abuse on more than one level, so if you're trying to break a Mustang, this is not the way to do it. Spirit is left tied to a little wooden post and we are introduced to another side character, Little Creek. Yes, that's actually his name. Little Creek is from the Lakota tribe and he was also taken captive. When we see Spirit again after his little 3-day sentence, the colonel tries to ride the stallion and after much struggle we see that he succeeds. Spirit's spirit is broken and he'll never see his mom again. Just kidding, we all know that would never happen, and Spirit throws the colonel off, causing the colonel to threaten Spirit's life. Luckily, our boy Little Creek is sneaky and saves Spirit just in time. The two of them escape and we're led to believe that this is Spirit's chance at freedom. But
more ropes.
Of course, everything happens for a reason, and if Spirit hadn't been taken back to the tribe, he never would have met Rain. There's no way that these two are gonna bond and form a spark and potentially become love interests. Little Creek also attempts to tame Spirit, however, using different methods. And, despite Spirit's persistence that he'll never be ridden, the pair bonds. Some time passed, and this was something that was also interesting in the part of the filmmakers. Since there's no real way to indicate time passing using a clock or even dialogue, the filmmakers used subtle hints to indicate that several months were passing by. This is apparent due to the season changes and also Spirit's main growth. During this time skip, we see a little bit of Rain showing Spirit around, and how their totally unforeseen romance begins to form. But no matter what, Spirit knows where he belongs, and he does become homesick. Little Creek also knows that Spirit will never be tamed, and we're hit with this lovely little one-liner.
I'm never gonna ride you, am I? And no one ever should.
And frees him. Now Spirit is finally free, and Rain is so excited because they get to be together forever in the wild, and just kidding, those guys are back. With the village under attack, Spirit and Rain rush to the rescue, where Spirit actually saves Little Creek from almost dying to the Colonel, but Rain ends up taking the shot instead and is thrown into the river. Spirit dives in after her, and despite his attempts to save her, they are forced down the waterfall. This is perhaps one of the most heart-wrenching scenes I've ever seen in my entire life, especially considering there's nothing but the music and background noise. This further proves my point that actions speak louder than words, and this movie is a perfect example of that. The soldiers end up finding Spirit and capture him, leaving poor Rain to die by the river. At this point, Spirit is loaded onto a train and is completely at a loss. He's lost the fight, and at this point there's nothing he can do about it. I think what makes it worse is the fact that the other horses on the train cart with him are the same horses that were with him at the Lakota tribe, and the looks on their faces as they're looking to Spirit to guide them to safety, and they know that Spirit still has some fight in him, but he's just broken and defeated, and the music further helps carry this point. The train, along with Spirit, is taken to the Transcontinental Railroad, where the horses are being used to pull a steam locomotive. I don't know how to say it. It doesn't take long for Spirit to realize that the train tracks lead to his homeland, which will put everyone else in danger. Spirit decides to pretend to be injured and is dragged away, where he takes his opportunity to escape and destroy the locomotive. Oh my gosh, it's Little Creek here to save Spirit after Spirit saved Little Creek. It's also perfectly coming together. Now, the movie's not over yet. At this point, Spirit and Little Creek are in another chase scene by the Colonel and a few of his men. They're running through the Grand Canyon, and with no other choice but to jump, we are finally shown that Spirit has his wings back, if you will, and miraculously makes the jump. At this point, there's almost a silent exchange between the Colonel and Spirit, as he knows the Mustang has won this war. Spirit is able to take Little Creek home, and oh my gosh, Rain's alive! Because this is a kids movie, and of course they're not going to kill off the love interest. Now, Little Creek must say goodbye to Spirit, and Little Creek names Spirit,
Spirit, who could not be broken,
and sets him and Rain free. The two horses are able to return back to the homeland, where they are reunited with Spirit's herd as well as his mother. The end scene is this beautiful montage of them running together, and Spirit sees his eagle again. The end. Okay, that was a lot. Let's review. As a child, I never paid attention to the fact that this film literally only has like maybe 6 pages worth of spoken lines in the entire film. Similar to Disney's Sleeping Beauty, where the main character literally only has like 17 lines in the whole movie, Dreamworks did this intentionally. The original script of Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron actually did have dialogue and was very different from what we have on screen today. After a lot of brainstorming, the team concluded that having the horses talking would defeat the purpose of having realistic animals, and the script was altered. And thank goodness they did, because this film is a cinematic masterpiece. There are a few things that could have been better, however overall it is a classic that everyone loves. The fact that the horses don't talk, the only voices we hear are a few lines from the humans and the occasional inner monologue from Spirit, who's voiced by Matt Damon by the way, led the animators to rely solely on facial expressions, and of course the music. The facial expressions of the horses in this film are obviously not natural, however without them the scenes wouldn't have the same effect as they do now. Even if there's no talking from Spirit's inner monologue, we'd still be able to understand what is happening because the emotion seen on screen is very detailed and thought out. Not to mention Hans Zimmer is a literal genius, and every single piece he's ever created is flawless in my opinion. Bryan Adams sang a lot of the songs as well, and I also think he's very talented. The company of the music in each moment matters. Not to mention, it matters when there's silence too. The number one rule in filmmaking is knowing when to use music and when to rely on sound effects. Without a doubt, this movie is extremely emotional, and it doesn't take the voices of the actors to demonstrate an intense level of emotion while on screen. I think it goes without saying that Spirit's character is a lot deeper than most people realize. Since I did a lot of research on this film, and I've also just seen it multiple times, every time I see it I feel like I'm seeing a new piece of Spirit's character. I mentioned earlier that Spirit takes his role as leader very seriously, and most people take for granted the fact that this horse was willing to give up his life for his herd. In the beginning, he fights a cougar to protect the two young foals. He goes to investigate the camp to see if this could be potentially dangerous for his family. Granted, this is a result of his own curiosity and ends up getting him into trouble. Even when he's captured, he still tells his mother to turn and run, and they reluctantly escape. Even later, he saves the life of his captor, Little Creek, and immediately dives into the raging river to save Rain. Spirit, time and time again, is willing to risk his life for the sake of others, despite what they've done to him in the past, and I personally find that admirable. Additionally, Spirit has a certain level of maturity by the end of the movie. He's still a good leader at the beginning of the film, however by the end he's taught a lesson to always be persistent, and he's also humbled to an extent. Each character in this film has their own personality, and it's kind of fun to watch them interact. Rain is charming and cunning, and Spirit's mother is cautious yet wise. In addition to the characters and how this small cast are all so unique, the cinematic side of things is very impressive. Each shot in the beginning especially is well painted and is inspired by Yellowstone National Park. Something else I absolutely love is the transitions in this film. I wish I had this smooth of transitions in my videos. Granted, SSO isn't really made for this, but each transition is unique and smooth, making time changes easy to follow and genuinely just making the movie more enjoyable to watch. There are some scenes where CGI is used, especially when there is a large number of horses being animated at once, and it's pretty easy to tell what is CGI and what's hand-drawn. It's not terrible, but it is there and it's noticeable, so if I had to complain about one thing in the movie, it'd be that. I think the romance between Spirit and Rain was a little rushed, or if I'm being completely honest, just downright cringy. Obviously, these are horses, who have no way to communicate their feelings, and since the relationship between Rain and Spirit is a short-lived side plot, it almost feels fake, in a way. No movie is perfect, and that's okay, and genuinely the only reason Rain was in this film was to add a little extra conflict for Spirit to deal with. She doesn't really have a character arc, and if I'm being completely honest, her character is probably the least developed. I mean, come on, she ends up leaving Little Creek despite everything they've been through, and their goodbye is less emotional than Spirit and Little Creek's goodbye. We're led to believe that Rain has died from her injuries, and even though we feel a certain level of pain and sympathy during this scene, we feel it for Spirit, not Rain. I can't speak for everyone, but I felt bad for Spirit because he tried and ended up losing again. Rain is simply a supporting character to force the audience to feel the same emotions as Spirit. Little Creek, Spirit, and the Colonel are the main characters in this film whether you want to admit it or not. The main characters and the protagonist are the ones that the audience will grow a connection to, and secondary characters are simply there to drive the story forward and redirect the attention to the protagonist. Other than that, this film is definitely one of my favorites. There's a reason I wanted to remake it, and even though it will always be a classic, there's so many people that have fallen in love with this film, and they also want to create their own version of it. In the 19 years that this film has been alive, I've never seen anything else like it. Even in the various remakes that other film companies have attempted to produce, they don't even come close to the original Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron. I think I've rabbled on long enough about this film. In conclusion, it's a solid movie that has been part of our childhoods for a very long time. I don't usually make videos like this, but let me know if I should review more movies. Leave suggestions down below, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!